it's crazy just how 1 or 2 pages could just change people's opinion on the final chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I'm not saying that these 1 to 2 pages, mainly this page in particular about Sukuna and Mahito, saved this series, or at the very least saved the ending, but more or less, it did give a good conclusion to the final villain, the antagonist of the story, Roman Sukuna. And I think that overall, it's a fitting ending for his character. There will be people that disagree, but I do think legitimately when you take a moment to think about, like, everything that has happened with Sukuna and the people he has fought, his final words, his messages, like what he says, is just truly thought-provoking and a good ribbon on top. People will be quick to say that it ruins Sukuna's character because it's last minute, and to be fair, there is argument to be made about that, Sukuna basically changing his ways and all that literally in the last chapter. But, at the same time, it is believable because of the context clues and the setup that Gege gave us throughout the story. So before we go any further, let's just say a few things. My opinion that, I had yesterday about the Jujutsu Kaisen chapter, more or less, is still the same. I still think the ending of this chapter is bad. I don't think it's a good ending for JJK. I don't think that it legitimately is fulfilling. And as I went on length to say, not every ending is going to satisfy people, but I think judging by the community's reaction even into today after the pages with Sukuna came out, it's very clear people still are very unsatisfied with the conclusion of Jujutsu Kaisen. In fact, more people more or less think that there is going to be a follow-up and even a part 2 of JJK, because the last page of the series has like this whole slow zoom in on the shrine and seeing the door open up. You even have a creaking sound effect on the side of it. It opens up on its own and you see Sukuna's last finger in it. Now, it was established a few chapters ago, before Sukuna died, if he was to die, there isn't enough of him around to be able to bring him back, but who knows? This is the King of Curses. This is a man that literally was the strongest in history, so who really knows? But the thing is, there is a lot of details with the final chapter, now that we've been given full context and it's out, that, there is room for a part 2. Do I think we'll get one? I don't know. It really, I think, comes down to Gege, and as I've talked about in yesterday's video, I really do think that he more or less wants to be done with JJK. And I think what is really painful about the now full context of the chapter that's come out is that we got clear indication that Gege is a really good author. Like, he's a good writer. Like, straight up. Like, this segment with Sukuna is actually fantastic. It is super great. It's good writing. It really actually gives so much good closure to Sukuna's character and everything going on. Even if there's some things that feel missing, it is very good. You can see what he was setting up and building up towards. And it just shows that, like, there is definitely areas throughout this ending sequence of JJK that he just did not give the same amount of attention and detail to. Because this Sukuna part just says it completely. Like, it really just reinforces that fact that he didn't care about anything else but the stuff with Sukuna going on in the fight and stuff. So, yeah, it makes it more or less really sad, and it really just shows the contrast of the previous chapters and even this chapter when it comes to certain specific panels. I think a lot of people would have legitimately loved this final chapter, if it did, to be entirely focused on maybe Sukuna going into the afterlife. I think that more people would probably say that this is the best chapter, a good fitting ending, if it focused more on that detailed stuff like 1 or 2 pages, instead of this whole B-plot side quest that the main trio does, which is cool to see them work together, but it's still not a really fitting ending. It doesn't really conclude anything whatsoever. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself and I'm retreading what I talked about yesterday. So, getting into the main point. Basically, with the revelations of Sukuna, there's a few things, context clues that has now been established with his character that you can see that Gege was setting up for a very long time. For one, we gotta look at, like, Sukuna's, like, first real showcasing of power. That's when he fought Jugo and Shibuya Art. And we had this whole meme that happened from that, stand proud, you're strong, and you see, like, Jugo, he cries and stuff, he's like, what is this? It's been memed to death and back. It is an iconic panel, an iconic image. It's been memed so much by so many artists, so much fan art, it's everywhere. And so, I'm willing to bet you, even if you don't watch or read JJK, you probably have seen that panel to some degree. And the thing is now looking at that panel and thinking about Sukuna's final words, it makes so much more sense in context to what he said to Jugo. When Jugo was defeated, you know, he gave his all. He gave everything he could to really take down Sukuna. He tried everything, and then when he realized he was defeated, he cried and all that, and he had this emotion growing within him. It was very different. It showed a very different side to Jugo that we didn't see before. And, you know, he asked, you know, Sukuna, what is this? And Sukuna responded, literally the next page after that, I don't know what it is. And then Jugo obviously disappears. And so with this final page, this final chapter of JJK, we get the answer. Sukuna finds out what Jugo and countless other people he has ended in the past, what they felt at the end when they lost. You know, he's changed, because it's like it's the first time he's really ever taken an L, it's the first time he's lost, he never lost before, so every time he came on top and he won, he had a victory, it reinforced his ideals, it reinforced his commitment, and him being basically a curse, it reinforced everything he's done his entire lifespan. But with him now taking an L, he's like, huh, you know, maybe I can take another path, because obviously my path isn't the all-purpose, all-knowing, all-strong, etc. There is other ways. And so, Mahito straight up calling, you know, Sukuna a bore, and boring is also in relation to what Sukuna said about 10 chapters ago. If you remember, Sukuna, you know, he's a really angry uncle fighting his nephew, basically, fighting, you know, Yuji, and he called Yuji throughout the entire story boring, useless, worthless, brat, etc. He constantly degraded and berated, you know, Yuji throughout the story. And then Mahito calling Sukuna a bore is pretty much saying that Sukuna became very much like Yuji. So it shows that development, it shows what he became because of his interaction with Yuji and seeing how he was as a person and how he beat Sukuna himself. Sukuna wants to probably go down a similar path as Yuji. So yeah, I like that. I really like the context clues, the establishment of that. On top of that, the conclusion of Gojo got a little bit better. It's not good. Like, okay, let's clarify this. I'm still upset that Gege really disregarded Gojo completely throughout all these chapters. I'm not a Gojo fanboy, I don't really care too much about Gojo, but I will continue to say this as long as I talk about JJK. He is a very important aspect of the story, one of the best characters in the entire story, and he is a really big plot mover. He moves the story. And thanks to his interactions with the story, you'd think more people would talk about him. Obviously, in the final chapter, we had Yuji talk about a flashback of what, you know, Gojo said to him, but we didn't get a funeral service, we didn't see the characters talking about him or discussing him, nothing like that. Which, once again, my opinions on that, I still do not like that. That is absolutely awful, and everything that Gojo wanted, for instance, to not be forgotten, opening himself up and stuff, you know, basically, he is going to be forgotten by everyone, which is just straight up depressing. It's a depressing ending for Gojo. And so, this gets into what I was talking about Sukuna. Sukuna's final words to Gojo before Gojo had lights out was that, I will never forget you, Satoru Gojo. And this obviously references what Gojo wanted. Gojo never wanted to be forgotten, even though, like, he knew eventually he would. And that basically means that as long as Sukuna is around, he will be remembered. And he felt happy, because he's like, if someone could beat me, that means that they must be able to last a very long time within this world, aka Sukuna. So, I don't know, I like the context, the interaction between Sukuna and Gojo, and it honestly is the best part of JJK. Looking back at everything now, and everything we got from the entire story, hands down, Sukuna and Gojo hard carried the entire manga. Now, with that being said, though, there is a few things I do want to reiterate. And that is, I am very disappointed that we did not get a flashback to Sukuna. This final chapter alone showcases what we needed and why people have been very upset with this conclusion. Because it's like the fact that you have the entire community collectively kind of changing their tune to a slight degree, like bumping up their overall thoughts of the ending a little bit, thanks to the Sukuna, like, development here, showcases how far, like, a flashback development arc for Sukuna would have went. It really would have made the finale just so much better, everything considered. Anyways, I do like seeing Mahito crying like a little kid. It's really funny just seeing him be an absolute jerk and all that, not understanding, not developing and all that. It's great. It just showcases the difference in our two villains as well within the story, Sukuna and Mahito, that we got. Besides that, getting back into the other point, I'm very upset as well that we had that whole little frame with Kinjaku in the last chapter and not even relevant. Not even relevant in this chapter. Didn't even appear. And it's just like, huh? What was the point in that? Which gets into why I think they're sequel bait. It feels like it, but I don't know. I mean, Shonen Jump, I would assume, owns the title. They own the property JJK. So, for instance, if Gege really wants to be done with the said story, theoretically, they could probably get another writer. I mean, we have seen this before, obviously, with the blessing of the offer. You know, we had, like, Toyotaro with, you know, Dragon Ball Super. I forget who's writing Boruto right now, but basically, you get the point. There is definitely, like, offers that give over their work title to someone else to carry it on because they just don't want to work on it anymore. That's what I think potentially could happen with JJK. Gege might wipe his hands clean with it, but give his blessing to someone else that wants to pick it up, because obviously Shonen Jump owns the property. I feel like more or less that's why the ending ended like it did, so open-ended than anything else, because JJK sells. I mean, hell, just literally yesterday, there was an announcement that had 100 million copies in circulation. That's insane. That's actually insane amount of copies in circulation and being sold, etc. for JJK. But, yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that. I'll probably do a follow-up video when officials come out talking about the differences and my overall thoughts, piecing it all together for the entirety story, like the entire story of JJK. But I'll leave it at that. Right now, though, Sukuna really, hands down, was the best part of the final chapter, and Gojo and Sukuna hard carried. Anyways, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.